Well, today I am going to the latest art museum in Shanghai. It opened this year in July 2021 and it's called the Museum of Art, Pudong. Here's my ticket. There are 3 exhibits in here today. One is borrowed from Tate Britain, which is sponsoring the opening of the museum itself, and they're giving advice on how to be a world-class museum. But the exhibit I'm most interested in, actually, is by a Chinese artist called Guo-Qiang. Now, the museum itself, as I make my way there, is in the shadow of those wonderfully iconic Shanghai towers, including the Pearl Tower, of course, behind me. So I think it'll be a good day. Let's go. So this is the beginning of the Ophelia exhibit in the gallery. And Ophelia, of course, is one of Hamlet's characters. Hamlet decides not to marry her and accidentally kills her father, which sounds a little bit, well, tragicomic. I'm sure it's not. This is one of the earliest renditions of Ophelia by Richard Redgrave in the early 1800s. Well, these are early pencil charcoal sketches of Ophelia by John Everett Millais. Of course, in the play, Ophelia does drown after having picked a lot of flowers in the countryside and falls into a stream. But the story of Ophelia is bigger than Ophelia herself, of course, and it involves the model as well. We'll find out more about her later on. And here is the real thing. Now the model for the Ophelia was Elizabeth Siddal, who was in her own right an accomplished artist. And Millais asked her to wear a white dress, which was covered in jewels, and then to lie in a bath of hot water, which was warmed, initially at least, by candles, lots of candles underneath. But the candles went out, unbeknownst to Millais, who was concentrating on painting sort of the slow drowning of Elizabeth Siddal's hair. And of course all the flowers in the painting are symbolic. They all mean something, all chosen very carefully, which is quite meaningful to Chinese audiences in particular, because almost everything in China is embodied with a symbolism of some sort, flowers in particular. This is one of his large pieces. He does do large pieces. It's the Forbidden City, fireworks over the Forbidden City, but it's not called fireworks over the Forbidden City, although that's how it was made. Apparently this model was made by villagers from his own village he went back to. And then the various coloured marks are from small fireworks. I do like these large format paintings by Guo-Qiang. They're made by placing gunpowder within 2 canvases that have been previously painted with something, and then a series of controlled experiments result in this sort of abstracted painting. Very compelling, I think. I love this one in particular. It's a view of an exhibit room in the Prada in Madrid. And if you look closely, you can see various classical paintings that he's making a nod to. And of course, he's making a nod here to Roscoe And I have to say I prefer this one, but that's just me. These large format paintings do demand that you sort of stand back and look at them long and carefully. Not that I'm doing it at the moment, but I did earlier on. I love this Mobius strip of trees or plants, a double helix. I would have that in my room, if my room were big enough. It's a lovely space, the museum. It's very angular, very clean. Now, Juan Miro, one of my favorite painters, or used to be, I should say. I've kind of gone off him a little bit. This is sort of classical, childlike abstract paintings that no children can possibly do. And partly, I think, because he was kind of obsessed by various parts of the human anatomy that children probably don't think about too much. And much more carefully designed and painted than you might think. Bit of old rope. Well, certainly than I initially thought. But really compelling, even though that they appear to be childlike. And then suddenly you come across something that is, it stops you in your tracks. And surely these things must have inspired Disney. And all sorts of other artists too. So now we're going to go into the glass gallery of the museum. And the designer of the museum was quite explicit about the relationship between the building and the Huangpu River on the outside. And so this gallery beautifully looks over the Huangpu and of course the classic West Bund skyline. It's a lovely space, the museum. It's very angular. And in here in the middle of the museum is a large space. The entire vertical extent of the museum is given over to a light display. It's very snazzy. I think it's called Encounter with the Unknown. It's a long way down. So I'm at the base of the light room at the moment. Great time to be here. Everything's going off and on very quickly. It's a fantastic space. Wonderful LED sculptures and some moving parts, wings and things turning. It's an excellent space. It must be at least, what, about 50, 60 meters high. You really get a sense of the expanse of it down here. And another of possibly Icarus flying too close to the sun, carried by a phoenix. And maybe that's reading too much into it. Another one on the wall of a space shuttle being ejected from the top of the rocket and moving into orbit, and then finally descending on a parachute, with man hanging from the parachute. Right, now I'm going to take us up to the gallery, which is at the top level of the museum. It is a very, very hot day out here. There it is, MAP. So now we're on top of the museum, on the viewing terrace, and the view is one of the best actually on this part of the Bund. It's no matter how many times you see it, it's hard to take your eyes away from it. So we're basically opposite the Peace Hotel in the Bank of China, and of course a customs house. In the night time, this must be absolutely magnificent. And because we're reasonably high, we can also see this fantastic river traffic, and it's predominantly, by far and away, laden and upstream. Still on top of the museum here. Lovely restaurant, lovely people, lovely food, lovely white granite. And now finally, let's go and have a look at the light exhibit, which are the works that have been borrowed from Tate Britain. Of course, Tate Britain is helping to kickstart the museum, and so the works that have come over from there are wonderful, and I'm not going to say much about them because they do, I think, talk for themselves. But in general, of course, it's all about the use of light and how these particular painters, Turner and Constable and Monet and others, completely changed the way we paint landscapes. And just as a non sequitur, here are a couple of marbles moving around on a microwave plate. Not really. Really lovely things, beautiful. And what more can you say about Salisbury Cathedral, done by Constable? Of course, many of these painters that have become somewhat cliched and chocolate box style were radical in their day. And it's sometimes very difficult to appreciate these works out of their time because they have become so popular. And here is a single Kandinsky in the museum. I do like Kandinsky. Kinetic art, anybody? Why not? Well, that was gripping for the head. Right, as is always the custom, let's take a quick gander through the gift shop. Never know what little oddities are here. Might pick up an original Miro. Or maybe not. What's that? No, it's a trinket. Put it down. Put it down. Well, that was 2 or 3 hours spent very well in the latest art museum in Shanghai and in Pudong in particular. It's a great building, and as a geologist it's hard not to appreciate any building built of white granite, which I'm sure I'll explain to you later. And I'm kind of sorry that by the time this video makes it out into the big world, you may not be able to see some of these exhibits in here. The light exhibit from the Tate Britain will likely be gone in the next month. But the Chinese exhibit by Guo-Qiang, apologies for my pronunciation, will still be here until November 2022, and that is well worth seeing. In fact, anything in here is bound to be well worth seeing. It is being advised by Tate Britain to be one of the art galleries, art museums in the world, and the space inside is incredible, and the views from the terrace are incredible. Did I mention that the white granite it's made from is also incredible? So I've brought you to this side of the museum now, this front by the river. You can see the gallery of glass that's part of the museum, and all of the structure, the white granite and the plaza here, is all part of this designed by renowned French architect John Everett. who explicitly said he is playing a game with the Huangpu River, which is over there. And the Huangpu River is, of course, between us and anybody's all-time favorite riverside frontage in the world, which is the Bund in Shanghai. And of course from here you can see Customs House, the Peace Hotel, the Bank of China, and any number of other wonderful historical buildings. And we will have an episode about these buildings and the front, and of course about this wonderful river, which is not, remember, not actually a river. It's a tidal distributary, but that's being a bit pedantic. And then finally, this lovely white granite that sort of faces the entire museum and the plaza itself. And white granite is quite rare. Usually there's a lot more of this dark mineral, which is amphibole or hornblende, specifically in this case. And then the white pinky stuff is feldspar, probably potassium feldspar, but there might be some plagioclase in there too. And then the mottled grey, which is the last mineral to crystallize in this cooling magma, is quartz. It's a much more common mineral. Yeah, it's a lovely rock. It's a good thing to put around the museum.